Fiona, welcome to Voices of Endpoint. It's great to have you here. It'd be wonderful if you could tell us your journey before you got to Endpoint.
Before I got to Endpoint, how far back do you want me to go? Um, so my degree is in computer science. I studied in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I graduated with a computer science degree before there was the internet. So that kind of dates me a little bit, but it shows you, how long ago that was. After I graduated, I went to Africa for about 10 years, working in primary healthcare. Came to the States with my husband in 2000 and started working at Thermo Fisher a short time later. So that was my introduction to IRT. It was around about the time when Fisher Clinical Service had acquired an IRT platform from Covance that was in development. And my first job was to work on the validation of that platform. Then from there, we spun off a joint venture with Quintiles, which was Senduit. And I worked there right through 2015. And then from there, I worked at in clinical supplies mainly, both in ancillary products for clinical trials at Ancillare and then at Your setting up a global depot network of 22 depots and managing the packaging distribution globally for them in their biopharma group. After that, I went to the sponsor side for the first time and worked at Kodiak Sciences, running the logistics and supply chain from their manufacturing through to their clinical packaging for trials. So that was my journey until Endpoint when I joined in 2024 in April. It's nearly 2 years, and enjoying the time here very much.
And that's wonderful. And it's a fascinating that you had a computer science background and you got your calling into IRT. What attracts you to IRT or clinical supply business, and what fascinates you in this domain?
I fit well into the domain because I'd been working in sort of primary healthcare in Africa, so I'd sort of seen the patient and the need perspective. But because I'd studied computer science and because I had worked, and in programming and different, gathering requirements and things like that, being able to logically describe what the end user needed in order to have the programmers and the technical team develop that was an area that I think I had, strength in. So that was something that was always fairly easy for me to do, was to see a problem and then logically describe how we could build a solution to solve that. So in IRT, it was the perfect combination of those two things. There was a business need, but also a real need at sites and in managing patients in a clinical trial, and then building a system that could perform that reliably and with high quality. So it dovetailed the two things that I had experience with very well.
And that's fantastic that you were able to transform a journey and user experience into systems and system specifications. Now, tell me, you've been in Endpoint for a couple of years. You play several roles and hats. Describe to me what are all the things which makes Fiona tick at Endpoint.
My main role is being responsible for our project management and account management, so our client facing teams, and that continues the sort of understanding of what is needed from us as we provide services and systems. What does good look like for our clients, and what are the what role can we play that will make it easier for them to do their jobs and for their trials to be successful, rapidly and at the pace that they need. So being able to take that and look at it from both the services that our project managers and our account directors are bringing, but also then to work very closely with our operations team in technical operations and in support and data management, to ensure that we're providing the services that our project managers are presenting to their clients, and that's done in a streamlined and clear concise and consistent way. I think, one of the things that folks have always said about me in my jobs is that I like to put trains back on the tracks when they're coming off. I like to make sure that things get fixed and get fixed permanently if there is something that we something that we can change or something that we can do more efficiently. So that's been the sort of role that I've played anywhere that I've worked. And, it's something that as we look forward to the future of how technology is evolving, it's, how can we make sure that these trains never fall off the tracks, and how can we do that consistently, depending, regardless of the experience or the the therapeutic area or the difficulty of design. How can we make sure that that's consistent and those trains are running very smoothly?
And Fiona, you touched upon something very interesting, that you're a change agent and really looking to make things more efficient and effective. You've seen the project management area for a long time, 2 years here and prior. What is a typical day in a life of a project manager, and where are areas in which they could be more efficient, or how are you thinking about that? Tell me the before and what could be the after.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, project managers, you think of project management and you think of careful planning and, and order. And, that's one of the things that can really go awry whenever you're involved in a setting like this, because you can never quite anticipate what unexpected situations are going to arise in clinical trials, whether it's a site user or it's a system design or it's a waiver to something that was expected to never happen in that study. There's always sort of little fires that can come up that immediately pull our attention. And I think one of the areas that we're really looking at is how can we be proactive? How can we be aware of or anticipate things and the possibilities of those things in advance? And when we think about drug supply management, and maybe a depot is delayed or something happens to the temperature controls and you have to do replacements and things like that. It's how can we make sure that everyone is aware, and all the people who will need to know about an event are made aware of that, and how can we kind of get ahead of that? So it's something that in project management, to minimize the amount of time that we're being reactive and maximize the time that we're being proactive instead. And I think that's one of the things that we're really focusing on or looking at is how can we use the data that we have and the experience, and well over 2,000 studies, and use that to kind of use the intelligence that we have from that to ensure that we can anticipate and that we can drive the knowledge that's needed to be proactive, to plan ahead, so that we don't have to be reactive.
I think you hit upon a very important part. The whole idea of project management is twofold. One is, of course, it is unpredictable, so you have to plan for the unknown and deal with it. And you're saying that to deal with the unknown, it's always better to have the data and the information so that you can look at it, things, and be more predictive and prescriptive in what you're trying to do. And you start to move people down this journey. So can you tell me what is the raw ingredients of a good PM? How do you select what is that secret sauce which makes somebody a good PM?
Yeah, I mean, I think, analytical skills, being able to look at, sort of disparate data and see the connections between it, or, to look at a request that comes from a sponsor or from a site, and not just look at the actual data that they have that they are providing, or the request that they've provided, but to be able to think of, okay, what does this data mean? What information do I require to be able to affect what they want to see? And what are the sort of risks, the downstream impacts? Because whenever we get asked to do something, we don't just want to be immediately executing that. We want to be thinking, is this the best thing? is the way that we're going to implement this the best way that we could? So I think that being able to analyze and sort of pause and look at what is changing, what do we need to make sure are unchangeable things. So the integrity of the data, the regulatory requirements that there are for certain pieces of this data, the documentation that we require to justify it and to do that. So I think being able to look at that bigger picture, not just the exact change that's being requested, but to look at it, to decide, what should be done. Is this the wisest thing that could be done? Are there other things that we need to think about, and how can we communicate that back and make sure that everyone is making the best choices that they can for the best outcome they can? So I think being able to analyze is a great one. Clear in communication, really responsive, and also accountable for everything you're doing. It's a big responsibility to be a project manager in a clinical trial, and to be able to ensure that our clients can have the confidence that they need in that person's ability, and also that person is really dedicated and looking out for them and their study, that you are an extension of the team that's working on the study at the sponsor, that if it's important to them, then it's important to you. I think those are the attributes that make a good PM.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. You started with analytical skills, but you went into communication, which was very important. You nuanced the domain understanding. It is a very domain intensive to understand regulatory needs and site needs and patient needs and sponsor needs. And then finally, that ability to be more prescriptive and predictive in what needs to be done, and that accountability structure. So as you have the wide variety of PM talent, how do you make, we're all humans, not everybody is Fiona, who's really at top of the game. How do you bring your average up? What are the activities you're doing in terms of best practices to make this group be a successful group, a market leading differentiated group in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something over the last couple of years, is how do you really share that knowledge and support that knowledge and enable growth in teams. We're split into different teams with different managers in project management, but we also have like stand-ups by role type that occur. Some of them are every day, some of them are cross-functional, and the idea of those is if someone can come with a problem or a challenge. So for our system design project management, our BSAs, they come together regularly during the week, and if they are designing a new system and they have something that is unusual or different that they haven't seen before, how can we get the knowledge from someone else in that team globally who's done that sort of design before? So how do we, to use your phrase, how do we democratize that knowledge, right? How do we make sure that it's not just in silos or isolated to certain individuals who maybe have been doing this for 20, 30 years, and a new person who's been moving into that role just in the last 5 years or a few years? How do we make sure that they can leverage that knowledge? And so we're using a lot of different ways to do that, obviously with wiki pages, with with different trainings, different stand-ups. But I think that one where they come together and can kind of bring their weekly problems to one another and kind of brainstorm as a group, and help one another out, has really been multiplying that knowledge for those sort of situations. And we're looking to implement that both with our project coordinator teams and our project management teams and our BSAs, to just multiply the knowledge that we have and not isolate it into one team or another, or one location or another.
Now that's a really good framework where you're bringing in experience and shared experiences leading to better productivity across each of the different swim lanes. Fiona, as you look to continue to make this group come together, as you said, knowledge is in wiki pages, and you're bringing that through shared sense of experience, bringing them to have a good dialogue and do that, which are incredible stuff. What role does technology have to play in this? Where can it augment and do things for this team, and what is that? What can be done better?
Yeah, and I think that's something that really we're getting, sort of a lot of energy and a lot of focus right now is how can we not just have a wiki page where you can go and look it up, but how can you interrogate that data and that knowledge and ask questions with with AI and the ability to kind of take that a lot of information and make it available for a very pointed question where it can be searched. And that's something that at Endpoint we're really implementing and getting ahead of, as well as these sort of teammates that are working alongside us very specifically in some of the activities we're doing. Some the protocol analyzer where we're using individuals who have a lot of experience on doing something to enable us to share that knowledge through that tool to everyone who's got to break down a protocol and analyze that. And I think, as we start to think of that process of how it can be sharing knowledge and leveraging it for the good of everyone, not just one person, we're starting to see more and more ways to use that for any and many of our tasks that we have, both in providing training for new users, user guides that are being generated, whether it's requirements, testing, and then all sorts of applications in our day to day. The monitoring of studies and reporting that out to our sponsor teams once studies are live. There's just so much that we can grab in the data that we have access to that we can present in a way that can be queried and reviewed.
No, that's amazing. Fiona, I know you're such a passionate person about this domain, but what do you do for fun outside of work?
I have a lot of children, so I most of my home time is focused with my kids. I have a pretty international family through international adoptions and some biological children as well. So I still have 10 kids at home. That pretty much takes up most of my time, and I have a dog and I crochet. So I'm busy most of the time when I'm not at work. But yeah. There's been very rewarding home life with all of our kids, so that's what I
Oh,
do for fun.
that's fantastic. And Fiona, as you start to bring in people into Endpoint, what would be your message? Why should they join Endpoint? What do you like about it, and what would you have them come on board for?
Yeah, I think Endpoint is it's a company that has a very rich history. And, right now we're at this sort of point of leveraging all of that history and that knowledge and leveraging the advances in technology, bringing them together to do something that really is quite unique. And, it feels like the opportunity for a real paradigm shift in how we do what we do. When I first started at Fisher, we packaged drugs in block sizes, right? And you couldn't imagine a day when you wouldn't have to do that. And then we had IRT, and then everything changed. And the way that you packaged, and the way that you planned, and the way that you dispensed, and the way that you randomized, everything changed. And it feels like that is where we are again, and the possibilities for really transforming what we do. I think Endpoint is has the people and the knowledge and the enthusiasm and the backing to make this big change right now. And I think it's somewhere that it's very exciting to be because it's right on the edge of where technology and clinical trials are going.
No, that's fantastic. And Fiona, as you want to think in the future, where do you think Endpoint and the project management function is going, and what is your vision for maybe the next couple of years on where to take this forward?
I want us to be the very best, the most preferred project management team in the industry. I want it to be the gold standard of, if when people describe Endpoint, they say, yeah, the project management was just outstanding. That we are an excellent partner who enables success with our sponsors in their trials, and ultimately that leads to advances in medications and in therapies that are dreamt about right now. So it's a lofty goal, but we want to be sought after for our project management skills, and known to be dependable and reliable and knowledgeable for our sponsors.
No, that's wonderful. Tell me, as you start to look at our employee and employee values, is there any particular one which appeals to you more than the other?
Passion and empathy. I think having one without the other. I tend to be a very passionate person, but sometimes I get very focused on the task and not on the people that are attached to it. And I think that edge of passion without the tempering of empathy that helps you understand the context in which you're working and how you're doing what you're doing can be a little bit dangerous, or can make people feel like they're not at the center of what you're doing. So those are two of the passion and empathy. I think when we can combine those, we're really in a winning combination. And I think that's what clinical trials are all about. They're about passion, but obviously they're about understanding that there is a need that has to be met. So understanding those people needs and then being passionate about fiercely moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, Fiona, this has been awesome, and ending with that passion and empathy is really amazing. Thank you for being at Voices of
Thank you.
Endpoint. Really appreciate the conversation, and look forward to many more dialogue in the future.